Good evening from Washington, D.C. I'm Mehdi Hassan in for Chris Hayes. Tonight we have more dire news on the spread of the coronavirus. Projections show we are on track for an absolutely hellish January with more than 100,000 new deaths expected next month alone. And officials in Colorado confirming today the first case of a highly contagious COVID-19 variant that was first identified in the UK. We also have more news about the failure to get vaccines out to the American public, as the next president of the United States is warning the American people that the current president, who was is not doing enough to save American lives. We're going to be covering all of that on the show tonight, but we begin in the United States Senate, where earlier today Mitch McConnell and the Republicans had a chance to help 160 million Americans suffering in the midst of the worst economic catastrophe since the Great Depression. In a year when America's billionaires grew their wealth by $1 trillion, McConnell and his merry band of multimillionaire GOP colleagues in the Senate denied an attempt to send $2,000 checks to ordinary Americans. McConnell blocked the relief measure from coming to the Senate floor for a vote, even though it passed in the House, even though the Republican president is on board with it, even though a majority of Americans, including a majority of Republicans, support it. But the majority leader and his super wealthy friends said no. And you should know who these people are. Our representatives who are making life-altering decisions while living very different lives to the rest of us. These are the top 10 wealthiest Republicans in the Senate. Kelly Loeffler of Georgia, along with her husband, is estimated to be worth $800 million. The 9 richest Republicans after her, a list that includes Mitch McConnell and several key committee chairs like Ron Johnson and Lamar Alexander, have a combined net worth of $277 million. So that's more than $1 billion between the 10 of them. They don't need $2,000 checks. And so they think you don't either. Now, to be clear, Kelly Loeffler and David Perdue, both trapped in tight runoff races in Georgia, have followed President Trump's lead and switched their position, now supporting $2,000 checks despite opposing them earlier. How convenient.
The president has fought for our country from day one. He continues to fight for every single American. I've stood by the president 100% of the time. I'm proud to do that. And I've said, absolutely, we need to get relief to Americans now, and I will support that.
If the president says jump, Kelly Loeffler asks, how high? Whatever the president wants, he gets. That is our whole shtick, her whole reason for existing. But Mitch McConnell, the 5th wealthiest Republican in the Senate, isn't swayed so easily. He and his ridiculously wealthy colleagues claim the country can't afford to give you a one-time $2,000 check in the darkest days of the worst pandemic in a century.
600 billionaires got $1 trillion richer this year, and the question before Senate Republicans is this: are you willing to spend an amount equal to just half of that windfall to America's billionaires in order to help 160 million Americans? Because right now, the 52 Senate Republicans serving in this chamber are the only thing standing in the way of $2,000 being sent to 160 million of our neediest citizens.
Senator Chris Murphy is right. The cost of these survival checks, and that's what they are for a lot of Americans, is half of what billionaires made this year. And it's about a quarter of the cost of the Trump tax cuts for the super rich that Senate Republicans happily voted for, and from which many of them personally benefited. One of those beneficiaries is Ron Johnson, the 4th wealthiest Republican in the Senate, who says he is now worried about leaving our children with debt.
I'm not heartless. I want to help people. I voted to help people. I voted for the $2.2 trillion CARES Act, but I also am concerned about our children's future and the fact that we are mortgaging it. We do not have an unlimited checking account.
I'm not heartless. I guess Ron Johnson wasn't so concerned about our children's future when he voted to spend around $2 trillion on the Trump tax cuts, which, by the way, increased his own $39 million fortune.